Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my week number 11 quarterback start or sit decisions for the 2024 fantasy football season. Inside of today's video, we'll be breaking down every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way up until Monday Night Football to be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the quarterbacks in every single game. But before we can get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 11 quarterback start or sit decisions for the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin with the Thursday Night Football matchup of the left hands up, who are we, the Commanders at the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Jaden Stormy Daniels had his worst fantasy performance in a game in which he did not end up getting hurt last week up against the Steelers. The man didn't score a single touchdown, and even though I knew that that was going to be a tough matchup for the rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels, I did end up feeling disappointed with his performance. Now, the Eagles' defense is looking better as of recently, but my philosophy with Jaden Daniels is simple. Can the guy walk? The answer is yes. You are going to play him as a top 6 quarterback. For Jalen Hurts, ever since the bye week, Hurts has been a top 8 quarterback in 5 straight games now, and top 4 in 4 straight games, mainly due to the fact that he has been rushing in an insane amount of touchdowns, which is basically making Saquon Barkley owners pull their hair out. This man has scored 8 rushing touchdowns over the last 4 games, and 3 of those games he rushed in 2 or more touchdowns. Against the Commanders' defense, I expect the floodgates to open for a huge showing out of Hurts as a top 3 quarterback. Next up, we move to Sunday, the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. Now, the Chicago Bears did end up firing Shane Waldron, and now they have a new offensive coordinator, but ultimately, I don't really think that's going to change much, right? Caleb Williams has been taking more sacks to the face than a chick on the casting couch. It's like he thinks if you get sacked, you get more fantasy points, or the Bears score more points the more sacks the guy takes. It is unbelievable. This motherfucker hasn't thrown a touchdown since week 6, and it's week 11. Buddy left all of his abilities in London, 3 straight games outside the top 25. You would have to be smoking on that cat piss if you thought that starting Caleb Williams was a good idea, and frankly, he should be on waivers. For Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet, this man has been colder than Leonardo DiCaprio at the end of the Titanic over the last couple of games. Though it is important to understand that Love has been banged up with the groin injury, and coming out of the bye week, we should see a more healthy version of Love, even if he isn't 100%. The Bears allow the fewest amount of points on a per-game basis to the quarterback position. So I'm not going to sit here and act like Jordan Love is going to fillet up the Bears defense, right? He's going to dick them down. But frankly, the Bears are a disaster, so Love should be able to finish as a low-end quarterback 1. Next up, we move to the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Detroit Lions. Now, with the report being that Trevor Lawrence's AC joint sprain in his left shoulder is significant, there is a very good chance that he misses the rest of the season, and it is incredibly unlikely that he plays up against the Lions. And that leaves us with Patriots legend Mac Jones, aka Tom Brady 2.0, to be the team's quarterback 1. Last week, up against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I get this is a tough matchup, right? He doesn't get to play up against his own Jaguars defense, right? He has to go up against a fearsome Vikings defense, right? His first start as a Jaguar, 14 of 22 for 111 yards and 2 picks. He also had that rushing touchdown, which was kind of cool. But the Lions defense is solid. It's not like he goes from the Vikings defense to going up against the Raiders, right? No, he gets put back-to-back up against good defenses, and I honestly just don't think that he is going to succeed here. I think he's going to be on the struggle bus. I would not want to play him this week. Jared Goff looked like fucking vintage Jameis Winston last week up against the Texans. 15 of 30 for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns with not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 interceptions. 5 interceptions is crazy work for Goff. When you consider that from weeks 4 through 9, he didn't throw a single interception. And back in week 4 up against the Seahawks, he didn't throw a single incompletion. Luckily, the schedule blessed Jared Goff here for a clear bounce-back performance up against a defense that wouldn't be able to stop fucking Nacho Libre for throwing for a few touchdowns. So they rank 3rd in terms of most points per game allowed to the quarterback position. Now, Goff ultimately isn't the best fantasy football quarterback, right? Because the team runs the ball a ton. He doesn't really have any rushing upside himself, but he's a fine low-end quarterback 1 in this spot up against a bad Jaguars defense. Next up, we got the cold like Minnesota Vikings at the Tennessee Titans. Now, at this point in the season, sitting in week number 11, to me, mono man Sam Darnold is a fringe start at best at the quarterback position. He came out of the season hotter than the guy that got stuck in the truck at the beginning of the Black Ops 2 campaign, but ever since then, he really has not looked all that great. And last week, up against the Jaguars in a wet dream matchup, in a matchup where I was talking about how Sam Darnold was going to beat the ever-living shit out of him. It was going to be a long day for the Jaguars. And instead of force-feeding the ball to Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison Ray, this man was force-feeding the rock to the Jaguars defense. 24 of 38 for 241 yards with 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Hopefully he plays better this week, and he definitely has all of the weapons to do so in a middle-of-the-road matchup for him up against the Titans defense. But I am definitely nervous because of what we saw last week. So I got Darnold as a low-end start in the quarterback 16 to 18 range. Now, Will Levis for the Titans, I will give him some credit. Last week, up against the Chargers in Los Angeles, he played extremely well. I didn't even know if he still had it in him. He protected the football and didn't throw any pants on the head, stupid interceptions, right? The stuff that we were used to early on in the season where there was no reason to throw the ball. 0, and he throws the ball to like 6 different defenders who are just standing there, right? He was the quarterback 10, going 18 of 23 for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 5 rushes for 41 yards. Now, he still did take 7 sacks, which isn't good. Like, the guy just is addicted to taking sacks to the face like his name was... Oh, man, I was trying to think of like a unique porn star's name, I guess what they say on TikTok, because you can't say that word. You probably can on YouTube. I was going to try to give you like an elite pull, but we'll go with Phoenix Murray, right? Taking more sacks to the face than Phoenix Murray, right? That's not good. We know Levis loves taking sacks. And we also know that the Vikings defense is very good. So I feel like he's going to go back to his old ways, throwing the ball straight to the fucking defense. So he is definitely a must sit. Next up, we got the Las Vegas Raiders at the Miami Dolphins. Now, Tua Tagovailoa has yet to finish as a top 18 quarterback ever since returning from the concussion a couple of weeks ago. Last week, he did play good football besides his dumb pick and his not as stupid fumble. 20 of 28 for 207 yards and a touchdown with that pick. Now, Tua is one of those guys that's a very good, competent, real-life quarterback, but he's not the best in fantasy football because, again, he doesn't really have any rushing upside, and because the offense does love to run the rock a ton in the red zone. Against a Raiders defense that gets elbow dropped by quarterbacks weekly, though, I do think this kind of feels like a spot where Tua could end up going nuclear and having a really big game. But again, because of his performances as of recently not being the best, I can't really rank him inside of the top 12, so he's a high-end quarterback 2 for me. Gardner Minshew was so fucking bad before the bye week against a Bengals defense that sucks more hog than Alexis Texas. They benched him for Desmond Ridder. You know it's gone absolutely wrong when Desmond Ridder gets into the game. Now, I can't find any information that would push me towards thinking that Minshew isn't the quarterback 1 in this game, but it wouldn't shock me if they pulled the plug on him again, and I don't think anyone should be surprised by me saying that, right? He has only been a top 18 quarterback in fantasy football once this season, and with a majority of his finishes being outside the top 20, you can't make a single argument to play Gardner Minshew, especially with how the Dolphins defense looked up against the Rams last week. And speaking of the Rams, they're the next team here, the Los Angeles Rams at the New England Patriots. Now, everyone across the globe, myself included, was ecstatic about Matthew Stafford last week up against the Miami Dolphins. And then Stafford decided to play his worst game in what felt like months. The Dolphins defense was rock solid, Viagra style, and they sacked Stafford 4 times, which was shocking to me because the prior 2 games, Stafford didn't get sacked at all. With all of the weapons that Stafford has, though, up against the Patriots defense, I do expect a competent game out of Matthew Stafford. He's not in the top 12 of my quarterback rankings on the week, but the bounce back should be fine for a quarterback 14 to 16-ish game. Drake May looked about as good as you would have expected last week going up against the Bears. Why? Because the Bears allow the lowest amount of points to the quarterback position on a per-game basis. Last week in Chicago, he was the quarterback 16, 184 passing yards, and a touchdown with a pick. Again, he's a rookie going into Chicago, and again, that's a real tough matchup for him. This week, he faces a not as hot Rams defense. I think he'll be able to finish in a similar spot as the quarterback 15 to 18. If this guy had actual weapons that we loved, that aren't just okay, that I think we'd be talking about Drake May in a much better light. Like, if you gave Drake May, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp, we would be hitting him with the Gawk Gawk 9000 special weekly. Next up, we move to the Cleveland Browns at the New Orleans Saints. But before we break down this game at the quarterback position, as well as the rest of the games for week number 11, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you sign up using promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description, you will get your free pick. Plus, a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Your free pick on Tuesday and Wednesday is going to be LeBron James, higher than half a total point. Match that with any other player playing in the NBA or in the NFL, and if both of your picks hit, you will get 3 times what you put into your pick'em. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher. If you are watching this, not on Tuesday, not on Wednesday, it's Thursday, then you are going to get a different NBA player higher than half a total point or an NFL player higher than half a total yard again. So make sure you guys use promo code Notorious or click on the link in the video description to get your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So back on into things here. The Cleveland Browns going up against the New Orleans Saints. Now, when it comes to the Saints, under interim head coach Darren Rizzi, the Risley Bear, the Saints looked competent for the first time since week 2, which led to Carr having a solid showing, 16 of 25 for 262 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 turnovers. And deep down, I will always be a Derek Carr believer, but Carr's weapon core is more depleted than when you're like level 1 in Call of Duty and you can't even make your own class, right? And they make you pick from one of the classes the game made for you, right? Early on in the COD life cycle, right? You don't have any guns, you don't have anything, so you're depleted. And that's exactly what Derek Carr is, right? He doesn't have the upgraded AK-47 with all the attachments, right? He doesn't have the C4. He doesn't have the pre-patch AK-74U from Black Ops 1, right? He doesn't have Chris Olave. He doesn't have Shahid Rashid Shaheed. The motherfucker has Marquez Valdez-Scantling as the wide receiver 1. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the guy we all know, doesn't have the makings to be a wide receiver 1 or even a 2. And honestly, he may not even be good on most teams to be the wide receiver 3. This feels like a clear comeback down to earth game for the Saints, in which Carr looks more like the Carr that we've been used to from weeks 3 through 9, so you definitely want to sit him. For the Cleveland Browns, famous Jameis Winston is like throwing a firecracker into your fantasy football lineup. Sometimes you end up like JPP, and other times you have a great 4th of July. Last game out up against the Chargers prior to the bye week was a bad game. The week prior, he was the quarterback 10, very solid. Now, up against the Saints, due to the defense being good against quarterbacks in terms of points per game for fantasy, I got him in the quarterback 15 to 18 range, but we all know the upside is always there for Mr. Jameis Winston. Next up, we got the Indianapolis Colts at the New York Jumbo Jets. Now, fantasy quarterbacks were so bad last week that Flacco, who threw 3 picks and didn't even score 14 fantasy points, was the quarterback 14. This dude, Joe Flacco, couldn't have read a defense last week to save his life. 26 of 35 for 372 passing yards with 2 touchdowns and 3 picks. Garbage time touchdowns. Against the Jets defense that is disheveled, I wouldn't be shocked if Flacco was like the quarterback 20 or the quarterback 19. But ultimately, what about last week showed me that he can even do that. I think the team could also pull the plug on him halfway through the game and actually throw in Anthony Richardson. So there's just too many factors to even want to start him. Now, Aaron Rodgers played like someone who had no eyes last week, right? Last week up against the Cardinals in Arizona, you can't blame everything on Rodgers. You can't, right? It's not all his fault. In the NFL, most of the time, it's not all someone's fault, right? There are multiple things at play. The fact that the owner, Woody Johnson's an absolute dumb bastard. The fact that they fired their head coach. The fact that they let Rodgers have the keys to everything. The fact that it's just all going wrong there. The defense doesn't look like the same defense they used to be, maybe because they fired Robert Saleh. But I digress, right? You can't blame everything on Rodgers. I'm not going to sit here and praise Rodgers, be like, oh my God, Rodgers plays so good, because he fucking didn't, right? Him and Davante Adams were not on the same page at all. And not only were they not on the right page together, they were reading 2 different fucking books, right? Rodgers was reading Harry Potter, and Davante Adams was reading Captain Underpants. Rodgers could bounce back, and he should bounce back. But what really gives us belief that he's going to do that? And the team also might have given up, so I definitely would sit him. Next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers, the first divisional game for the Steelers all season, an AFC North division rivalry matchup. Now, Lamar Jackson, you can't spell MVP without Lamar. Well, actually, you can spell MVP without Lamar, but as of right now, through 10 games, in my opinion, Lamar is the crystal clear MVP. This dude has been cooking like he's a contestant on MasterChef and has been a top 10 quarterback in 9 of 10 games, a top 6 quarterback in 7 of 10 games. His consistency is unmatched at the quarterback position. Some may panic because the Steelers' defense is great. And while I get you may want to slightly panic, you're not fucking sitting Lamar Jackson. Lamar, as I just said, as I wax poetically, is the most consistent quarterback in fantasy football and has the upside to slice the Steelers defense in half like a Mortal Kombat finisher. So Lamar deserves a top 6 quarterback ranking, and he will stay at the top like he's stuck. Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson, gave the Washington Commanders a nice knuckle sandwich last Sunday. 14 of 28 for 195 yards and 3 tugs with 1 INT as the quarterback 9. Against the Ravens, this game has all of the makings of being a potentially high-scoring game. I love Russ here as the Ravens defense has been getting raw dogged by quarterbacks all season, allowing the second most amount of points per game to the quarterback position. I like Russ as a fringe top 10 quarterback. Now we move from the 1 p.m. slate to the 4 p.m. slate, headlined by the Atlanta Falcons at the Denver Broncos. Now we all know how good the Denver Broncos defense is, and with Kirk playing well and not really being he's another one of those guys that's just not a great fantasy quarterback, there is really no reason to start Kirk Thuggins. Again, he hasn't been performing the best for fantasy. The Broncos defense is really fucking good, so just leave him on your bench, even though Kirk has been looking good in Kirkvember. For Bo Nix, Big Dick Bo has been a top 18 quarterback in 6 great games. Now, obviously, being the quarterback 18 is nothing to write home about, right? When you're the quarterback 18, it's not the most fruitful finish, but at least he has shown off some consistency in his game as a rookie. The Falcons defense is soft and rank 7th in terms of most points allowed per game to quarterbacks. Bo could take advantage of this spot with especially how good he has looked as of recently. I got him as a low-end quarterback 1 in the quarterback 11 through 12 range. This is a guy that has the upside to rush for 50 yards and a touchdown in any game as well. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks going up against the San Francisco 49ers in Santa Clara. Now, Brock Purdy has been on fire, NBA Jam style, over the last 4 games now. 4 straight inside the top 8 with back-to-back games inside the top 5. Even without Brandon Ayuk, the 49ers offense has not skipped a beat, and with the Seahawks defense being as useful as throwing a shot of water on a fucking house fire, Purdy should be able to replicate his success as a top 8 quarterback, and I expect him to have some great success. Very nice, I like, in this spot. Now, Geno Smith had a great fantasy day prior to the bye as the quarterback 3 up against the Rams in an overtime thriller. Shout out Michael Jackson, right? 21 of 34 for 363 yards and 3 tugs. Also had 3 INTs, though. Problem is, the 49ers defense is pretty good, and last time out up against the 49ers early on in the year, Geno was on the struggle bus. I think Geno's a fine start in great matchups, but this week is not a great matchup, so I would leave him on my bench. Next up, we got a great rivalry, Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. And it's funny because this is a very one-sided rivalry. In the regular season, Josh Allen owns Patrick Mahomes. In the postseason, Patrick Mahomes owns Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes was basically useless in fantasy football early on in the season, and by early on, I mean a majority of the season. Weeks 1 through 7, he wasn't worth diddly squat. But over the last 3 games, he has really picked things up. The addition of DeAndre Hopkins has really helped him out, and he has yet to throw a pick now in back-to-back games. The Bills allow the 5th lowest amount of points per game to the quarterback position, so I definitely think it would be foolish to sit here and oogle and ogle over Patrick Mahomes. But he should be a fine quarterback, too. Nothing to write home about, though. In the quarterback 15 to 18 range, Josh Allen, in the first 7 games of the season, didn't throw a single pick. None. And that's out of the ordinary for Josh Allen, because Josh loves throwing some absolutely boneheaded interceptions. Over the last 3 games, though, he was back on his old bullshit, right? He threw 4 picks in those 3 games. Total, even with the interceptions coming back, he was still the quarterback 7 in back-to-back games and has been a top 7 quarterback in 4 of the last 5 games. This is a tough spot, but the Bills have won 3 straight against the Chiefs in the regular season, so I like Allen's odds as a top 7 quarterback again, and I got him ranked inside of the top 6. Next up, we got, "'cause you waited all day for Sunday night," the Cincinnati Bengals at the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, Joe Burrow has been on top of the world. Quarterback 1 in back-to-back games, dropping his nuts into the mouth of the Raiders and the Ravens defense. The craziest part of his 428-yard and 4-touchdown performance in Baltimore wasn't even that his stats were that great. It was the fact that they lost. He threw for over 420 yards. He threw for 4 touchdowns, and they lost, which just goes to show you that the Bengals defense blows more than a hairdryer. So Joe will have to throw a ton in games. Even with the Chargers defense being solid, Joe Burrow has earned his right. He is too hot to sit. He is a clear top 6 quarterback for me. Now, early on in the season, the Chargers ran the ball a ton, and that was really kind of the chink in the armor of Justin Herbert, the pervert, right? If you run the ball too much, you're not going to be able to throw the ball enough for a fantasy football quarterback to succeed. But now he's had 3 straight games inside the top 12, and going up against a Bengals defense that we just talked about, they can't stop a nosebleed. Justin Herbert, the pervert, will sling the rock all over the yard as a top 10 quarterback on the week in the quarterback 7 to 10 range. Final game here, Monday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. Cooper Rush and the Houston Texans at CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans at Jerry World, Dallas Cowboys, and Cooper Rush. I just flipped the Texas quarterbacks. It is what it is. So Cooper Rush will remain as the Cowboys starting quarterback, which to some of you might be a surprise. I'd say, Nick, why don't they let that small, short king Trey Lance play? But for me, it just seems like Jerry Jones, Old Man Jerry, has a hard-on for Cooper Rush, and he's going to go out there this week, and unless he fully collapses, I think they play him next week up against the Commanders in Washington. Cooper Rush scored negative points last week. He didn't get 3 points. He scored negative points. I think he is better than what we saw last week, but up against the Texans defense, it might be the exact same thing. Same shit, different day, so you would be crazy to play him. CJ Stroud has been bad for the last 4 weeks, and honestly, for the season as a whole. Now, I was someone that told you guys, do not draft CJ Stroud. Problem was, I told you to take Anthony Richardson instead, so who's really the fool, right? Probably me, right? If there was ever a game, though, for Stroud to let that thing hang, it would be up against the Cowboys defense that stinks more than a Greyhound bus bathroom. So I got CJ Stroud as a low-end quarterback one this week. Hopefully Nico is back, and that helps out Mr. CJ Stroud a ton. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying today's video, hit that subscribe button, Mike Tyson style, like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video to help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog, promo code Notorious to get your free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000. Link also in the video description or in the pinned comment. I love you guys more than you'll ever know. Check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen them already. Have a great one, and as always, good boy!